when did you get involved in dogs, and what made you want to revive a breed?
Well, I've been around dogs my whole life, from as a kid. And I've always loved dogs and cats, and always been around them. The thing that got me into breeding in the first place, it's a weird story, but I lived in a really, really bad area, and I had my house robbed. And I mean, they took everything. And I was pissed off. Not only did they take everything, but they took my damn phone. I couldn't even call the police, man. I mean, it was crazy. So the police came the next day, and they said, listen, there's not a lot we can do because of where you live. I recommend getting a Rottweiler. And so I did a little research, got a Rottweiler, and anything I do, I'm like very competitive. And so the first function was protecting the property. The second one was understanding this breed. They used to have a magazine called Rottweiler Quarterly. This is showing how old I am. This started back like in 95, 96. So I started going and watching Schutzen training, which is a German type training for Rottweilers. I learned about the German bloodlines. And long story short, I got into them and started breeding Rottweilers. What I did learn about them is Rottweilers are a attack dog. And again, like I've said before, dogs are created for a specific function, and that's what they are designed to do. Now, if you don't like that, you don't need to bash them. You don't need to say nothing. You just need to go find, of the 278 breeds out there, find the one for you. So the Rottweiler at the time was right for me. It was an attack dog. It was an agility dog. It had a high prey drive. It was a dog that was bred to take down a man, and that's what I needed at the time. I learned that they were also a one-owner dog, and because of the high prey drive, you have to be very, very careful with the situation that you put those dogs in. It's the human, not the dog. So unfortunately, I was very young and put these dogs in bad situations, and bad things happened. So I had to figure out, with a new family coming and all the things I was going through, I had to find a dog that could protect, but was more low key, lesser of a high prey drive. So that led me to Neapolitan Mastiffs. I started breeding Neapolitan Mastiffs.
Now, can I cut you off real quick?
No, absolutely.
Were they the like more of the show type, or did you go more towards the working type Neo?
Oh, okay. So with the Neapolitan Mastiffs, at the time that I got into them is 99. So 99, they weren't recognized by the AKC. They were a rare breed at that point. Very few people knew of them. And Neapolitan Mastiffs, there's no such thing as a show type and a working type. And I'm saying this because I've been in that breed since 99, and I don't care what anybody says. Does not matter what their opinion is. The Neapolitan Mastiff was recreated for a specific function. There's a standard that was written by a panel of experts that actually brought the breed back, and they're the only opinions that mattered to me, and I'll never change on this. The Neapolitan Mastiff is a guard dog, and it's an estate guardian. It originally was the Roman dog that they would use in the Colosseum that would fight and guard. The Neapolitan Mastiff is a loving, loyal dog, but it also can be a very nasty, hard-headed, tenacious dog that's very dominant. It's an alpha dog, and they're not for everybody. And those dogs, regardless of what people think, they are what the standard says. So when you read the standard and not the internet, you'll understand it's real easy. It's very descriptive. It'll tell you what a Neapolitan Mastiff should look like. They should have loose skin, pendulous lips. They should be heavy framed, heavy boned, cat-like. It describes how they walk, how they move, how they act, how their temperament should be. So I always tell people, if you're on there saying there should be a working Neapolitan or a show Neapolitan, I tell them both. There's no such thing. There is a Neapolitan bred for a specific reason. It can work. It has a specific type of work. And it also can be shown because you can take it in the ring and people can observe this dog and say, based on conformation, based off what the standard says, this dog looks the part. The only thing you can't see in a show ring is that dog, if it's on a property protecting. You'll never be able to see that, obviously, in a show ring. But if a dog gets to a point where it no longer can guard and protect, or if it's lacking those attributes of the bigger frame, the pendulous lips, and the loose skin, it's not a Neapolitan as far as I'm concerned. It's there's other breeds that represent that. Like, for instance, a Cane Corso is what people tend.
Ask you that, yeah.
Yeah. So people tend to say, Cane Corso looking Neapolitans are the correct working. No, they're not. That's a Cane Corso. They're different, So, and that for me has been, I'm not as involved in the Neapolitan forums as I used to be. I'm a dog handler and a judge, but I will tell you, and anybody who really has a passion for the Neapolitan Mastiffs, has been around and understands that breed, we all are on the same page. There's no such thing as a show or a working. There's only a true correct Mastino, and it can be shown and it can work, but the work is specific to what it is. Like a Saint Bernard will drag you out of the snow. A Rottweiler obviously can run and hunt and take you down. A pit bull, I know people don't want to hear this, but at one time they were bred to fight. All these dogs have a specific function of work. Like a greyhound can race, that's working, but it's different. They're all different. That's why these breeds were created. So the Neapolitan has a very specific function, and that's what it is.
Okay. That makes sense. So let's get back to the story of the American Molossus.
Okay.
What made you say that's the direction I'm going, and how did you start? Just lay it out for the listeners. What's the story?
Okay, so the one thing about me is I have been in documentaries and I've covered this topic, but no one's really dug and wanted to find out what got me to it. So breeding Neapolitan Mastiffs, it's an interesting thing. The breed was rare and they were brought back. They had to bring a bunch of dogs and recreate them. They started doing this in the 40s, and then they redid it in the 70s, and by about the 80s and 90s, it kind of perfected the breed. What got me into the American Molossus was learning the history of the Neapolitan Mastiff. I was fascinated with the breed, fascinated with the history going back to Rome. And when I started reading these books, I found out that they're the descendants, as well as the English Mastiff, of the ancient Molossus of Mesopotamia. And when I learned about this giant dog that was bred for protecting and guarding property and people and animals, and how big it was and how it looked and everything, it was like it's kind of like the Jurassic Park type situation where you think, man, what if we could bring back a Tyrannosaurus Rex? I mean, you don't really want to bring it back, but it's kind of a fantasy, right?
Sure.
But I had this fantasy of, like, what if that dog was still around, And so while I flirted with these dreams of that dog being around, I continued showing and breeding Neapolitan Mastiffs. And then in Italy, there was a famous breeder, Ben Gachet. He had these dogs, and he would experiment with the Neapolitan Mastiffs, and a lot of people thought that he was crossing them with Mastiffs and producing these giant Neapolitan Mastiffs that were really big. And then there was another famous breeder, Pepe Ciano, who had a kennel called Della Grada Azzurra, and he had produced a dog named Carnera della Grada Azzurra. And this Neapolitan, by standard, male Neapolitan Mastiffs are generally around 160 pounds. This dog was boasted, and no one's ever seen him on a scale, but they said he was around 200 pounds. And I mean, he just blew people away. It was like something no one had ever seen before. And so everybody in America was thinking, you know, we got to produce this big Neapolitan Mastiff that's big, bad, and black, and like Carnera or Brigante or whatever. And so everybody's trying to do it, but no one could do it. These dogs just continued to stay the same size, and just nothing was changing. And I was having luck getting bigger dogs, but I couldn't get to that mark. So then I started flirting with the idea that, well, hell, if they're cheating and they're crossing them with Mastiffs, you know, shoot, maybe I should just do it. You know, so I know a lot of people have never heard me say this, but I'm just going to keep it real. That's what was going on. And a lot of people were flirting with the idea here in the States of doing it, but no one wanted to take that risk, you know. And then in America, you can DNA the dogs. And so if anybody ever caught, they would love the dogs, right? If you saw the dogs, you'd love them. But if anybody DNA'd them, they'd crucify you, because that's how breeders are. If they can tear down their competition, they're going to do it, right? So I never did it. I never crossed over and did it. But I kept flirting with the idea. And I talked with a lot of breeders that some of them aren't around no more, but some are. And I'm sure if they're hearing this conversation right now, they're biting their nails going, Marcus, don't throw me under the bus. I'm not going to throw their names under the bus.
I understand.
But they know, and I know, that we sat down over meals and talked about them trying to convince me to do it. They're like, come on, Marcus, you're the crazy bastard. You do it. You right. Cross them. And then just remember me. Yeah, they're like, I'll get a puppy from you and whatever. Yeah. So anyways, the dream of the Molasses thing, it was just one day I was at home, and I can't remember if I had a dream about it or I was just thinking about it, but I thought, wait a minute here. Wait. I'm flirting with this idea of doing something that people want, but it's not the right thing because it's underhanded. Mm-hmm. But on the same token, the Molossus that was the dog that created them both, mm-hmm. is something that anybody, if they had that dog, would absolutely freak out about.
Well, what do you mean by underhanded, though? Because at the end of the day, everything is crossed. Everything is crossed. So, I mean, I don't see it as underhanded. I've looked at your site. I've seen your videos.
Yep.
I don't see that as underhanded. I see that as you saw an opportunity to create something, and you created it.
Right. Well, what it basically is okay. So Neapolitan Mastiff, as far as I'm concerned, are recognized. Although they're a hybrid and created, they're recognized as a pure breed on paper, right? Mm-hmm. So if I know that, and I'm, you know, a part of the club, and I'm a judge, and I'm a handler, and I'm a reputable breeder, I can't crossbreed them and then lie to the public and say my bigger, badder dog is a purebred, because that's what I mean by underhanded. I'm literally doing something that I know isn't technically correct, and passing it off as something else. So that's what I mean by that. And I know people do it, but I'm not the one that wants to do it. So what basically happened is it was a two-headed monster. So there was flirting with the idea of doing that, knowing that I would get crucified, I'd get loved and hated. And then there was the fact that I always wanted to see this Molossus brought back. So I finally said, enough. What I'm going to do is, I don't care how many years I've been dedicated to this breed, I know that this ancient dog needs to be brought back, and I know that people would love this dog. And for me, there was no greater dog in all of antiquity, because when these dogs were around, the dog of death is what they called it in Mesopotamia. Those dogs were around from Mesopotamia, Sumer, Babylon, all the way down to Greece and Rome. And so the way it happened is the Greeks found this dog and crossbred it, which ultimately created the English Mastiff as we know it, or as it was known. And then the Romans used this dog and crossed it with a smaller fighting dog to use in the Colosseum. So the history was intriguing. So I thought, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to, against all odds, I'm going to bring that dog back. And that's what ultimately made me have the shift. And I just said, you know what? I don't need to do anything underhanded. I'm just going to bring that damn dog back, and that's it. And so I made that shift. I dedicated myself to working on the standard. I did research, and I don't want to take all the credit because I had tons of people that wanted to see that dog back, that gave me articles, that gave me photos, that gave me information. They really wanted to be a part of it. They helped me. And it was the most craziest, funnest project that I'd ever been a part of. It became an obsession of mine, and that's what led me to bringing these dogs back. That's the story that I have not really shared with the public before.
Well, hell, I appreciate you sharing it with me and my listeners, man. What was the foundation, if you don't mind?
So there's a chart that I have on my website, on my Old World Molasses website. There's a page dedicated to the American Molossus, and it has a genealogy chart of canines. And if you look at the top, there's the ancient Molossus of Mesopotamia. And that dog, there are only 2 dogs that are direct descendants. There's no ifs, ands about it. There's no one that disputes it. Everybody knows. And if you actually DNA either dog, they both are molossoids. So the Neopolitan Mastiff and the so-called Mastiff is what they call it today, are the true descendants of the Molossus. If you look at a Mastiff and a Neapolitan Mastiff, they have more characteristics similar than make them different. The Molossus was bigger than both, a larger frame dog than both. It was a black to black brindle or brindle coat, so they couldn't be seen at night. So that was really the bigger difference between the Mastiff and the Neapolitan. But there's all the other characteristics are the same. As far as the construction of the dog, the function of being a guard dog, there's all these things that are very similar. So basically, in terms of, I basically had to deconstruct. That's the mentality of what I had to do. So I had to take the 2 direct descendants and the ones that had all those functions that I'm looking for, and I had to deconstruct them back to bring back the Molossus. So if you flip it, where most people are familiar, if you're creating a new breed, so to speak, you're taking, let's take the American Bully, for instance. Now, I don't know everything that goes on behind the American Bullies, but let's just take it as a generality.
Okay.
They took a pit bull terrier and say they crossed it with an old English bulldog. Let's say they took those 2 to create a bully. Now, I know that there's several ways to get there, but let's just say hypothetically that's what they did. Most people can understand that. So they took those, and then the dog that came out of that, let's say it's a litter of 10, and of the 10, 4 had all the attributes that they wanted and 6 didn't. So they took the 4 and they used that as their foundation stock, right? Okay, so it's the same thing. So when you take a Neapolitan Mastiff that has all of the characteristics you're looking for that's closest to a Molossus, and you take an Old English Mastiff that has all the characteristics of what you're working with, you breed those together, those are your hybrid, those are your F1 foundation stock, you produce a litter. The litter that has all those characteristics of the original Molossus are the ones you keep and you work with. So the way this works is, it's not super hard because this dog still exists in both of them. The blood is still there. The genealogy is still there. Everything's still there. So I'm just going backwards. And I don't want to make it seem super simple, but if you understand the process, it wasn't hard. Just the biggest challenge is producing the right type of dog with all the characteristics consistently. That is the hard part. And then doing all the other stuff like their temperament, the guard, the protection part of it, not being a fighting personality, not being a passive personality, a dog that's healthy. I mean, there's tons of stuff that goes into it, and now those are all the things I'm involved with right now. But that's basically how I work to get back. And it isn't simple. It isn't like you can just go get. I'll just go get a Neapolitan. I'll just get an English Mastiff. I'll just put them together, and boom, I have a Molossus. No, and it's nowhere near that. It's way more involved than that. But I'm just trying to give a basic um, reference point of what happened.
Okay. Nice. Um, Now there's a lot of people that say that with the larger dogs comes, problems as far as hips, joints, things like that. Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, I mean it's how do I say this? It's it, any animal that's extremely large has the potential of being more prone to certain things. Like let's take Andre the Giant in wrestling.
Hmm.
Um, he's a abnormally big guy, weighs more, and so he could be prone to other problems. Now he did die young, but really didn't have any other physical ailments. But I suppose you could say he could be prone to it. But my perspective on these dogs is different. I'm one that's a very optimistic, positive type person. So I look at it completely different. I look at it as, why can't you have a dog that's a large framed, physically strong, powerful dog that's completely capable of doing anything and everything, and not having those and being able to live longer? And that's the approach I'm taking with it.
Hmm.
And that's where I'm going with it. So if dogs have any issues, then I'll try to eliminate them or find out what caused it. Was it genetics, or was it food, or was it somebody being too rough with them? I mean, wear and tear. Those are the types of things that I'll look at over the long haul. But my goal right now for these dogs is just to be the ancient Molossus of the past, a dog that's plenty capable of doing anything and everything that those old ancient dogs did, and to be able to live longer. That's the goal. And if somebody says that they won't, or they can't, or it's impossible, or hey, that's okay. That's their belief, not mine. So that's my goal.
So how many generations in are you?
We right now are at 4 gens.
Okay.
We're at 4 generations in, and we've had a lot of. I have to say, I've been really happy with the consistency and the results. There's been a few things that need to be tweaked, like some colors have come out that are recessive. We've had some that have had more of a dominant personality. We've had some that have been a little bit more passive. But for the most part, it's been pretty good. So I've been really happy with where we are. But I mean, just like anything else, there's no way I will ever sit here and be satisfied.
Yeah.
I never will. So it's just one of those things where my harshest critics can never be any more critical than I am myself.
Right.
So
And there's always room for improvement no matter what you're doing.
always. Oh, absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I respect your outlook. That's good. So outside of that, what does the future hold? Like, what are you trying to do to further the American Molossus?
Well, the biggest thing for me is the first goal was to bring them back. So I worked on a standard. I had sketches drawn of what those dogs should look like. The standard is really descript from everything from function to temperament to size, color, everything, because I didn't want anybody to try to mess with that at all and try to have, their kind of a perverted view of what it should be.
Hmm.
It's really clear what those dogs should be and what they were. So basically what I'm trying to do is do that, then get them registered, which they are recognized and registered with now 5 registries. The ultimate one for us is going to be AKC. And I've talked to several people with the AKC that are excited about it and have been very supportive. So it's going to happen.
Now,
So
is that going
that's
to be? Is
yeah.
that going to be? Sorry, is that going to be?
No, no, you're good.
Is that going to be registered as American Molossus or Old World Molossus?
American Molasses. Yep.
Okay.
So the breed is, in fact, I'm glad you asked that question so I can cover it because there's questions about it. So the breed is American Molasses. My kennel name is Old World Molossus, so that's the difference.
Okay.
That's my
All right.
kennel name,
Yeah.
but the breed is actually American Molossus. The second question I get a lot, and I'm happy to answer, is why in the hell are you calling it an American Molossus when it's from Mesopotamia? And the reason why I call it that is because I brought that dog back, and I'm from America, and I think it's really important. It's significant to reference why that dog was brought back and where it was brought back. It's the same as the Neapolitan Mastiff. The Neapolitan Mastiff was recreated and brought back in Naples, Italy, and that's where they got the name the Neapolitan Mastiff.
Right.
It's very important, very, very important to me, for moving forward for all of history, that this dog, this special breed that was brought back, was done right here in America. I'm very proud of that, and I would never change it.
100%. What would you say to a newcomer that wants to get involved with the American Molossus?
Well, what I would say is that is just do the research and contact me, because it's this breed is really special and unique. Special in the fact that it's the history of it, and there's it's misunderstood, the history of it, and also understanding what the dog looks like, how it should act and function, because these dogs are not from they're just not for everyone. Probably the biggest detractors that are out there, I have a lot of love out there, but I do have some haters. And the biggest thing is they're fat and lazy and they drool and they can't function and they're not a working dog. And I would encourage them to reach out to me, because that is just a couch potato quarterback talking. Anybody who's ever seen these dogs in person will understand that these dogs are no joke. I mean, they are very big, very powerful, and very capable of doing a lot of different things, and they can't go to anybody. Can they be lazy? Can they be chill? Absolutely. Can they light up? Can the hair go back on their back, their tail go up, and have them come unglued and be one of the things that would give you nightmares? 100%. I have videos of these dogs hitting sleeves. I have dogs of these running down mountains, swimming. They're capable of doing a lot of different things, but there's only one specific function. That's being loyal, loving, and protective of their property, their people, and other animals, and that's it. And there's other breeds that have different functions, different working functions, and so I would encourage them to contact me so I can make sure that they clearly understand what these dogs are. I absolutely love these dogs to death. There's nothing I would ever change. They lasted for thousands of years, but I understand and respect they're not for everybody. So that's what I would say to them.